Good morning, everyone. This is Otsukimi, and this is Observations with Otsu. Glad to have you here. I'm just going to get straight to the point. Theme of this video is the long road ahead. We are going to look at thematically how the prices are going to change throughout Q4. That's a big discussion right now. A lot of people are tired of this price action. I saw a comment today like the past 6 months feel like 6 years or something like that, and I totally agree with that. We will discuss that, how that feels. The market here has not done very well today. It's kind of the inverse of yesterday. We'll get into that as well when we get to the theme of this video. Going to continue to do it the old school method. We're going to, after this introduction, we're going to talk about the theme a little bit and just kind of go overview of my trading group. Then we'll go into the analysis of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then we'll just continue with that. So let's get started. Going to be doing a quick plug, as you guys might know, I don't do sponsors. So this is the trading group that we have. This is called Apex Trading Group. It used to be called Nowhere HQ. I did some rebranding. If you're familiar with this, I have scripts. I've got bots coming up this week. I've got a group. I got lots of other things, and so it's a bit fragmented. So I went ahead and rebranded it, packaged it all in one good thing. And so this is what this is. And so I mentioned this. I'm really hesitant to focus on pricing in an actual YouTube video, but this is where the prices will increase here in a couple weeks. So these prices will change. If you get them now, you're going to continue to keep that price. So that's something I wanted to mention, but that's not really why I wanted to mention it. The idea is this is a good way to support me while I support you with these things. As you know, I don't have sponsors. I don't really want sponsors. I've worked with sponsors before, and I've done lots of KOL deals, things like that, and like it's very hard, especially nowadays, to. I mean, I guess it might be easier a little bit these days. Anyway, the point is, you have a leash. You have a leash, okay, and that leash dictates what you can say, when you can say it. For a lot of people, that prevents them from being honest, and so they'll butter you up because they're getting, paid tokens, for example, if they have a project as a sponsor, or they won't even call them a sponsor. Like they'll be kind of grifty about it, and so that's just not me. It's not how I want to operate for this. This is like super low per month, like less than a cup of coffee, almost less than half a cup of coffee for some of you. And so I think that's a pretty good deal. And it's not even about the money, it's just the barrier of entry. Otherwise I'd get flooded and may not be worth my time. I want to support people that are willing to support themselves, which is take the time to research coins, take the time to trade responsibly. I've done a lot of free stuff before. I still have free stuff, and a lot of times you get bombarded with just the most degenerate people that don't care about your time, don't care about your energy. They don't care about themselves primarily. They just want to gamble their money away. And if you do gamble your money away, I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying that the behavior is much more erratic and radical versus someone that really wants to trade responsibly or build for a goal. Some of you are probably, like when I first joined, like I knew a lot of people in 2017, 2018, like, and I know Crypto Dog, I know Credible, I know, Rager, I know a lot of these guys, CBS, things like that. And a lot of people from when I started now have families. Okay. And I've been here for 7, 8 years. So it's like, if you've been here for that long and you haven't had goals, that's very problematic in my opinion. But anyway, my point being is I want to attract people that have goals or want to progress instead of just making crypto a gambling platform. So anyway, you can go into the details with that. I just actually opened up a crypto payment rail. And so I actually always had it, but it was very confusing. And the reason I got to charge a little bit more is, for one, it's for 6 months of access, but two, the crypto payments are typically too small to bear with that. And it is what it is. But I also offer, I also offer that for the cards, and that's also 17% off. So you can check that out if you want. Again, don't mean to plug. It's just a way to support me while I support you. I don't have sponsors. I don't want sponsors. I want to be honest. Sometimes I ramble and things like that, but my main characteristic I want to share with you is that I'm at least accurate enough to help you in some way while also just trying to be honest with you at all times. So anyway, that's the group that I have, and we'll get started into the theme. Okay, so the theme of this video is the long road ahead, and so knowing that, it's probably gonna be my thumbnail. We'll see where that goes. But the frame of reference for what that is there's a mix of sentiment. Okay, there's a lot of people that are starting to enter complacency, depression, things like that. Like it's almost like this mini 6 month area here. And how much is this in particular? Um, Kind of just doing commentary as I go. So 170, 170 days roughly feels like 10 times longer than it's actually been, right? We've gone through the sentiment, we've gone through the pumps and the fake outs, the engulfings, everything like that. And to be frank, we're tired of it. I think most people are tired of it. I think people are starting to get on edge. Funny enough, I don't see a lot of people toxic right now. I think for the most part, I just see apathy, and which is very strange for this type of pattern. And even on the weekly structure, this is not a good or this is not a good sign into the week. This is a sign that we are probably going to accelerate downward. We'll get into that in the Bitcoin video. This theme might take 5 minutes or less, hopefully less. I'm trying to get these videos shorter. But my point being is people are sick of it. People are ready to move this forward. But what happens is when people are sick of it and they just buy something to feel something, that actually increases the supply, and that makes us go downward even farther. And so we gotta. That's why this is so complex. Is because we accelerate really high up to all time high, but that increased in extra interest, and so that was something that was a catalyst for that, and then that helped us mix up the supply and demand. Funny enough, and I get a lot of criticism for divergences. We have a divergence right here. And so I really want to emphasize that, like, when you get divergences, I can't stress this enough. I might just make a highlight video just for this. When you have a divergence above the 80% RSI marker, it is very effective almost every single time. Almost every single time. Actually, the only time it probably wasn't was here. I think this was a divergence as well, and we dropped a little bit, but insignificant relative to this one. And so, we had another one here, um, and now this one did run a little bit more, but we had that drop down, right? So that was this. The divergence here was invalidated time we got up to this point. So this led to a drop, and so where were we at here? The divergence was at this candle here. And so this is where you need to kind of focus it. Oh, that's the date chart. So like this is where you really need to think critical, because all right, yeah, we ran up 4% over a month. You'd be like, okay, great, that was it, or we had the drop, and you may think that that's over, right? But we continued to drop on. So like this whole thing really is considering this whole divergence, right? And so from that standpoint, we actually dropped down 44%, 45%. So that's why these divergences matter. Right now, we're at about 20% versus the same thing. And so this is exactly why I point out divergences. But really, what I want to say about the theme with the long road ahead and things like that is we're tired of this area, and we're thinking about the long-term scope. We're thinking about the bullish trend. We're thinking about red September. We're thinking about October. We're thinking about the bull run in Q4 that we tend to get. And so that those things may or may not play out. I'm not saying that they will. I'm not saying that they won't. Okay. Historically, things seem like they're matching up well, because we've gone on a downtrend since March. So that makes sense to me, and should make sense to you logically, that if we've been going down for 6 months, maybe we'll reverse for the next month or two. Okay? That's completely reasonable. I think that's a very reasonable, um, logical process to this price action. It doesn't mean that we'll get it, but it makes sense. Okay? And so that's why I want to bring this up, and that's why I wanted this to be the theme of the video, because a lot of people are thinking on the long-term outlook, but they're not sure when. They're thinking of it as more of just of a thought or a dream, or like a hopium. And so I want to give context of where that could actually be, okay? And so I do think that there is evidence to suggest that what I had just said will be the case. That I think September will be choppy at best, downtrend at worst. That I think October will be a green month, not necessarily a big month, but a green month. And I think November and December will certainly be a green month, green 2 months. And so we can take a look at that. So there are some reasons to suggest that this could be the case. Now, this is not necessarily extensive. One thing I'm considering in regards to this is actually the monthly level. I switched over this, but this is a key area that I'm interested in, and we rested in the zone. We actually broke down here, but we're still holding the lows here. Now, we're currently breaking down from this, but we still have 27 days to go. And so I think, okay, for one, I understand that this is a monthly time frame, and this is why it's so concerning. A lot of you guys will not have the patience to go through this, but I think if you try to have patience for a little bit longer, I think that this could go to your advantage. But the reason I bring this chart up is because if we can close this candle green, then I think that is a major, major win for the price action. Because if we don't, this will be a full deviation. Right now, this is not a deviation technically. I think it really depends on how you view it. For me, it has to clear the entire scope, which it did not. It actually held the zone. It was breaking down, but it actually recovered. And so if we can hold this, if this can be green, then I think that that is going to be a major victory into the long-term scope. So that's the first primary thing. Bitcoin is going to be the main catalyst for this. If we can hold that, it's going to do pretty decent in my opinion. Okay, so that's the first one. But there are some things, and I think that this gives credence to why the alts look good, but they don't, is because some alts are starting to warm up, and I'll give a few examples. So the first example is going to be Dog with Hat, actually, and I think, actually, I'll probably just leave it at this example. I don't want to spoil too much because some of this I have shared with my paid group, so I'm going to reserve more than I anticipated. But this will give you a good insight, and go ahead and check the patterns for a lot of meme coins, and that will kind of help share what I'm saying because this is a repetitive pattern. But we have so you have kind of a wedge here. Focus on these two red lines right here. This is forming a wedge formation, which I believe are key patterns for areas like now when basically the entire market's falling out and the structure. Let me backtrack and reiterate, like, the market sucks. Okay, support and resistances are not holding. I've said this a handful of times that market structures are not holding at all. They have no integrity. And so when all of this happens, you need to look at two things. One, you need to look at the major trends in this, or the major support structures, which will be right here, and that's a little bit too far away right now. The other thing, and really just all three of these that I have marked out. But the other bigger thing is the trend. And so here you can see you have a falling wedge. You can make fun of me all day for drawing these wedges. I don't really care because these work very well. And also in times like this, nobody has their answers correct anyway, and these tend to work out, okay? When all else fails, you focus on the trend, okay? And so what we can see here is we had the wedge, we had the drop down here, and now we're starting to coil, okay? So don't treat this as a disrespect of support and resistance, although that is true. Treat this as a coil. And so this is starting to coil up, and so that's going to pressurize. Now this could pressurize upward, could pressurize downward, okay? That is going to be a bidirectional idea. Now, in some other coins, especially the meme coins, take a look at those and see if you can recognize a similar pattern or not. But I say all this to say that this is typically evidence that we're going to go upwards. Not always. But what I want to mention is that by the time this gets down here, okay, we're probably going to hit somewhere right around this part. So usually it's about 3/4 of the way down. And if you look down at the marker, it's like at the end of September, okay? And so that's where I see that as. And so the pressure, the end of this line right here matches at September 29th. And so doesn't mean that we'll go all the way. A lot of times we go early. And so what I'm looking at for this is a reclaim of this zone and then a break above before the end of September, okay? That's how I'm interpreting that. I think a lot of coins have that similar setup to where things look kind of bad right now, as evidence as the price action does right now, but they look salvageable before the end of the month. And by the end of the month, it looks like they could make a big reclaim. Okay, and so that's where I'm coming up with the scope of this idea, the long road ahead theme. So, what's my long road ahead? A reclaim somewhere between September 15th to the end of September, as a bottom catalyst for the rest of the run this year. Now, I could be wrong. That's a big thing. I understand, but a lot of coins seem to have that that type of analysis. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So my main thought behind that, on how to trade that practically, is just to wait this out, look for key levels, look for that trend, look for those coils, those breaks, those wedges, things like that, and try to be patient just a little bit longer. I understand that's the last thing you want to hear if you've been losing money for the past 6 months. You feel like you just want to give up, and and this doesn't always repeat, but in all the times that I've almost given up or have given up, it's the time where the market recovered. Okay, and the market will do that. The market will mind trick you into thinking that you should give up. Okay, but be wise about it, right? Don't gamble, don't high risk, things like that. So anyway, that's kind of the scope I have as far as where we can recover, long signals, things like that, mid September to late September recovery, and then we continue a bullish trajectory for the end of this year. So anyway, that's the theme. Let's get into the analysis part, starting with Bitcoin. All right, so let's start off with Bitcoin. We're going to go on the weekly perspective as usual, give you a high time frame perspective. Also, kind of a side note, I notice a lot of people don't even cover the weekly anymore. If you're not familiar with this, this is a weekly video series. I usually cover the weekly. I give some commentary on the daily, but not really much. I don't cover anything lower than the daily, usually. Rare exceptions I do. But if you want daily and 4 hour analysis every day, 5 days a week, that's what my Apex trading group is about. Okay, so the free videos, I cover Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. The private videos, I cover altcoins, okay, or other types of analysis. Yesterday, I actually covered extra commentary on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and so that is what that's for, right? But this is a high time frame video, and so going on to that, we'll get started with this. So last week we had an engulfing bearish candle, and so I've mentioned in previous videos how I don't hold that in high conviction. Doesn't mean it can't work that way, but engulfing candles don't always do the performance that you might think that it does. But that is what happened last week. We have an accelerated down move so far today versus yesterday. We'll get into that in the daily section. There's not really much else to go with. I've mentioned this in different videos before, that you had your swing high order block here. There's nothing from the top high of the order block either. From a price action standpoint, this is just a complete mess. You could even go here. You don't really have anything to work with at all. And so this is one reason why we're struggling with the price action, because it's not really respective of anything. The biggest issue that we had was this divergence up here at the highs, and that is why I really discuss these things so critically, is because we have, this was your deviation zone. Let's see if I can kind of map this up here. And so really your entire thing was this. And so, but you also got to think this wasn't here yet. So if you hit the replay, and so now you're looking at something like so, you had the push above the zone, you had the divergence, and so that was it. Okay. And so we actually had the reclaim, which looked pretty good, but then we failed that the second time. And once we failed that the second time, it was pretty much done. Like this whole area isn't really anything anymore. It doesn't have any integrity. So we've been fighting within this zone. And so what do you do within that? Well, there's not really anything to do with that. It's just you have to really look at this as just one big range. The problem is this keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So now your range keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that becomes more problematic. And that's why we're having this issue, is because the structure, the order structure, is getting very complex. And so this is probably your current structure. Clean this up a little bit. And so but we've already hit one low, two low. We tempted a third low. We're getting ready to be tempted on that third low again. And there's a good reason that we could hit that because we have a breaker on this zone anyway. And so that is part of the case. Now, again, from a price action standpoint, we can't do much with this. Okay, I can guess that if we hit below 55.8, we're going to continue to go downward. We may or may not do that. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but price action by itself does not give us anything. Now, what does Aaron give us? We have a bullish consolidation here that's kind of trying to go up and trying to hook up. And so this typically happens when the bullish move is trying to cross. Sometimes, in rare cases, not super rare, but not uncommon either, that a cross will happen by default, not because of their strength, but because there's no strength on the opposing trend. Okay, but right now we still have some trend for the bearish, perspective. So what this will probably do is continue to go downward. Sometimes you get a hook downward, kind of like these, hooks, or we have this here. You get the hook and go down again. That's typically a sign that we're going to continue that bullish consolidation, or have a bearish acceleration. One of the two. Now, this typically results in a reversal, not always, but that tends to be a few candles away. That's also another reason why I'm looking at the long road ahead theme, that by the end of this month that things will be good. I mentioned on the monthly that if this is green, this is a big deal. Okay, so the idea is we need to hold above this blue line. If we get that by the end of the month, that's good. It could be the bottom. The problem is, do I think this is the bottom? No, I don't think this is the bottom. I do think we hit 52. I I could be wrong. I don't care that I'm wrong. I don't care that I'm right or wrong. I'm just looking at what I see. Okay, anything can happen, and you get these people that's like, see, I told you it wouldn't go to 52,000 or whatever. And but the thing is, that's not my point. My point isn't to tell you I think it's going to be 52,000 and you better trade it. Otherwise, you're going to be a loser and I'm going to be a winner and I'm always a winner, right? That's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying this to be right. I'm saying this because that's what the markets are showing me at this time. It could be wrong. It could fake out. It's happened before plenty of times. It'll happen again plenty of times, okay? The idea is not that you're right or wrong, it's that in the long run you make more money, okay? And so that's the perspective for the price action and the Aaron. There's not much else with Aaron either. Aaron's kind of in a weird spot, and a lot of these are kind of in a weird spot. The 200 EMA is not being respected. Nothing's really being respected, and that's very unusual. That doesn't happen very often. And I do wonder if, I don't really talk about correlations, and this wouldn't technically be a correlation, but I almost wonder if institutions are also part of this. Not because of the correlation of price, but because of the pattern. Okay, we have not seen a pattern like this of this duration for some time. We saw some of it right here, and this was just a big mess. Okay, and that we had a divergence, not even a divergence on the weekly, I think of the daily, but this wasn't respective either of this level. I don't even know what this was. This didn't make sense at the time either. And so we could see an accelerated version of that. And so we might even see another push. I don't think so. I think this would head down now. I think this heads down now or never, pretty much. So we'll see where that goes. But this led to another 20% down move. So this could also do the same. If it does, you're looking at 45. Okay, and this would match a bigger zone that I think a lot of people are not really looking at, which would be this area. A retest of this upper level. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. RSI is not giving us much, but we are floating around the 50, so I think that's okay. That's not the best, but that gives us some idea to what to look for. We need to reclaim that 50. We're not even respecting the 50 on this either. So, I mean, you could look at this as a 45 level, but it's not holding. See what I'm saying? Like there's nothing in the markets, like nothing's holding, nothing's making sense, nothing's really um, very has a high integrity. There's nothing. You just kind of have to go with your gut. And the thing is, when this happens, it tends to be a time to stay sidelined, typically. Okay. But we're also talking about weekly perspective, so take a look what you can on the high time frames. Let's go to the daily really quick and see what we got here. But nothing in particular here. We had this reclaim here. Let me get rid of this. Had the push above and the deviation below, and so that means we're probably going to accelerate down to about 55.5 or even lower. We'll see where this goes. I don't really like the fact that this is going down. Like even Aave is going down like 10%. A lot of these are down critically, um, and this is just not a sign of strength. It's not a sign of strength. Okay, we can talk about the semantics of this, but this is not a market you want to be exposed to constantly. Okay, pick your battles with that. So anyway, I don't really have much to add with Bitcoin. We had the bearish cross to the upside. RSI is failing. Let's go to Ethereum, and we'll take a look at this from the weekly perspective as well. We had the drop down here. No divergence in play, nothing like that. This is a little more contextually solid. We have kind of a level here to go in. We're kind of above this level, but we're kind of in no man's land. We need to recover 2,500 on the weekly to really give any sense of anything. Bullish consolidation on the Aaron is giving us an idea that we could recover this. But again, we're looking at the prices, right? We're looking at the irregularities. Ethereum may perform well, but it may not because Bitcoin's not performing well. And that's just going to be part of what that is. So the markets just don't look really good now. This is not a market you really want to be exposed to. RSI is not doing much either, but this is a pretty good zone. I don't want to discourage this zone particularly. If we do reclaim 2,500, which isn't far away on the weekly, however, that would be pretty decent. On the daily, not much to work with here. This is a good example of why I say the markets are not respecting the zone, because you had your breakout down here, you had the divergence, pump fake, deviation, and now you have a consolidation move. This typically results in a drop down, but none of this is respective of this bigger level on the weekly. And so we'll probably get a drop down here. I would not be surprised if it's here's kind of a channel. I hate to kind of put this down, but you could hit sub 2,000. That's a possibility. If you wanted to try to play this a little more conservatively, which I don't know, you could do this. So then you're looking at maybe like 2,100. So that's what we got for downside target. So just keep in mind how that looks. Very irregular market. And this is not a market to really swing trade either. And the thing is, it's not really even a good market to short. Like, it's not fun for anybody. And so it sucks. I'm here with you, but it sucks. So let's go to Solana. I'm going to combine these for the video. Go into the weekly here. Here's your situation here. You almost have kind of a channel situation, but I don't like this at all. I don't like the fake from this zone. You have a good clean level here, but you have this level on the daily that's well protected, but it's not protected on the weekly. Okay, and so what you really have is something like this. So now you're between these two levels again, not respected, and so we're probably going to come back down to about 118. That's kind of what I see. You have a thin bullish consolidation, which doesn't mean much. It's too thin to really have a strength. RSI is weak again, and these are not good signs. You have the you have a 1 week Aaron bearish trend going on with a very thin consolidation, weakness at the RSI. This is going to take a while. Okay, this will take a while. This will take weeks, if not months, to recover. Okay, and so there is even a possibility that like what I said, the altcoin run may not happen. Don't rely on that. Don't expect that to happen. Wait for the trend to recover first. That's how I see that. So anyway, that's kind of what I see on the weekly. Not much on the daily. This is kind of the level that I was looking at before. And I've mentioned this in a lot of videos. But again, you kind of have a bouncing ball method coming back down. You do have a little area up here about 120. I think this will be a little bit more contentious. So But don't be surprised if we tag like the high teens of this and then possibly recover. But we are entering a point where the bear trend is actually, you know, getting its full effect. So we'll see how this goes. Again, my point of this video, I'll get to the summary, is to focus on the higher time frame perspective. This is a weekly video, okay? Don't think about the prices from day to day, okay? Right now, the big focus would be if you plan to buy with the perspective of 3 to 6 months ahead, okay? See where the levels are at now. A lot of these levels on the weekly are failing the 50 or near the 50, which is a reasonable area to consider when you're looking at high time frame perspective. We were only really above the 50 once. We were here just a little bit, I guess here too, but the 50 tends to be a good ground for high time frame trends, and that's something I think that you should consider. So if we can reclaim the 50, I think that that's good. But we are not there yet, and something we need to keep in mind. Avi's doing fine with that, and so which sucks because Avi is a great example of why the market can be so frustrating, because this has a very clean consolidation, has an accelerated up move, or pressure, I should say. We're just waiting for the impulse. This is the marker that I have. This is a personal trade of mine. And we actually increased above the 50, and we're staying above the 50. This looks pretty freaking good if you're looking at this from 3 months out. Okay, but this looks terrible right now. And so that's where you have to make your decision. Are you trading for now or are you trading for later? And that is the point of this video, is to trade with a different perspective, because there will be a time to trade the 1 hour, the 1 day, whatever, right? And so these come in stages. The market's not ready for that kind of move just yet. We're looking at the high time frame, and that's what I see. So anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you think. See you next time.